So I got cut off earlier. Apologies for that. The space on my laptop's limited at the moment, so that is something I'm going to have to bear in mind. I was discussing Jeremy Corbyn and my concerns about his leadership, and more than concerns, frustration, and to be honest, candid anger about how I feel in terms of his attitude to world affairs and to our position in the world. There was a headline earlier today that I think really lends itself into this conversation, this subject, and that is that Prince Charles has been confirmed as going to be the head of the Commonwealth when he ascends the throne, I should say. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, surprise, surprise, had called for Prince Charles to not automatically take that title and it to be rotational. Now, the convention states that it's not a hereditary position anyway, but to me, that just demonstrates Corbyn's attitude to Britain's position in the world. This is a man who doesn't seem to want this country to maintain a prestigious position. Personally, I think it's right that Charles heads a Commonwealth, King Charles as he then will be. Um, Time permitted, might make another video about that because it's an interesting subject in its own right. So to carry on where I left off, like I said, there's been attention on this woman at the anti-war protest who was actually praising Assad and saying, "Well, he's a doctor. How could he possibly do these things?" Now, why am I mentioning her? I'm mentioning her because these are the very sort of people who vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Um, and to be clear here, I am not vilifying and attacking every single person who is sympathetic or has voted for or intends to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. There's areas, like I say, on the domestic front, I'm sympathetic to some of Mr. Corbyn's arguments. I don't hate Jeremy Corbyn, but I do not think he should be in number 10. I do not think he can be trusted on national security. And not just Jeremy Corbyn, the people around him. I mean, this is a man who has a Stalin apologist as his main advisor, Seamus Milne. Just imagine, Theresa May had a Holocaust denier, for example, as her top advisor. Do you really think Labour would let that go? Because the people that you surround yourself with, I think, says a lot about a leader's judgment. And right now, there are some pretty nasty elements within the Labour Party. Think of Naz Shah, who has come out with things that very few other MPs would get away with. This is a woman who actually tried to shame the victims of sexual abuse in Rochdale, insinuating it was their own fault. She liked a social media comment that was shaming those young women, girls. Um, the anti-Semitism issue. Are the Tories taking advantage of that on some level? Yeah, they probably are. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a problem. And I'm not going to go into too much detail with this one because I've already covered it in another video. But suffice to say that for too long, Jeremy Corbyn has been complacent. Do I think that he is personally anti Semitic? No. I don't believe that Jeremy Corbyn hates Jewish people. And I'm sure that his apologists and his defenders will come up and, quote left-leaning Jewish people who support Corbyn. But the fact remains that there are a lot of people hiding behind the guise of being pro-Palestinian who are vociferously anti-Jewish. I mean, this is obvious if you look at the sort of forums that these people are on. I think at best Corbyn has been astonishingly naive. He claimed that his social media account was hijacked and he was added to those groups without his knowledge. Well, that just demonstrates incompetence. Even if you're not technical savvy yourself, you would think that the leader of a major political party would have people around him who is on top of these sort of things. Facebook has security settings that can prevent you being added to a group without your permission. But I think this just comes down to Corbyn's attitude in general, complacency for too long until it's exposed. And another area I really take issue with Jeremy Corbyn is inconsistency. When it comes to the issue of violence, for example, when it comes to terrorism, When Jeremy Corbyn is pushed on issues like the IRA, and actually I believe that's less of an issue because it's more historic than the issue of Islamism. When he's pushed on these things, he makes these very easy answers like, oh, I condemn all violence. But when you're asked a specific question, you have to give a specific answer. I think that making a generic condemnation of violence, anyone could do that. It's not good enough. It doesn't tell the voter what you really believe in. And yet, like I said, when we're talking about right wing violence, far right extremism, Jeremy Corbyn will be very vocal and specific about that. Now, that's good. He should be, because that is also a problem. But that demonstrates to me an inconsistency. This is a man who is not prepared to call Islamism by its name. That, for me, is a grave problem. And I would criticize any leader who's hesitant to do that. Not just Jeremy Corbyn, there are others. Um, but when you add everything up, even this to me isn't even a left wing, right wing issue because there are other left leaning people who are patriotic. I mean, there have been left leaning prime ministers. Clement Attlee, Major Attlee, was a patriot. Yes, he had socialist principles. And yes, he had the most left wing government up until that point, probably. But I cannot imagine Clement Attlee or Harold Wilson or Jim Callaghan ever taking some of the positions that Corbyn is so obviously taking. It's true that Harold Wilson faced scrutiny when he was in number 10 for supposed Russian links. That's true. But I've read the Ben Pimlott biography, and I think of Harold Wilson, and I think Jeremy Corbyn really is in a league of his own. I mean, this is a man whose followers denounce Blairites who don't support him, and yet look at his track record. This is a man who has spent an entire parliamentary career opposing his elected leaders, whether it be Tony Blair or Gordon Brown or Neil Kinnock and and John Smith, but particularly Blair and Brown. Now, people could say what they want about that, but the fact is they were the leaders at the time. So I think it's a bit hypocritical for Corbynites to denounce Blairite traitors for not falling in line when Jeremy Corbyn spent his career being a rebel on the backbenches. I mean, that to me is hypocrisy. Um, I've no doubt that he has had to placate to the centre on some level, but the fact of the matter is, people talk about this galvanisation of young people. That's good on some level. It's good for young people to be involved in politics. But quite honestly, young people can also be astonishingly naive. And I'm not saying that to smear all young people. I know for a fact when I was 17, I was naive. I freely admit that. You get blinded by ideology. You put your emotions before reason, and the fact of the matter is you can never know everything. You're always learning in life. And I think a lot of young people, especially hardcore Corbynites, they think they know everything and they think they've got it all worked out. And it's that actually lends itself to, like I said in the previous video, personality cult. And it isn't just young people. I've seen Corbyn supporters in their 40s and 50s and older treating this phenomenon like anyone who criticizes Corbyn or even questions Corbyn is a capitalist roader, a counter-revolutionary. And that might sound like hyperbole, but I really do think there is something of a personality cult going on here. And it makes me very uneasy. Labour right now is the largest political party in Europe by numbers. It's actually one of the largest political parties in the world, unless I'm mistaken, by the numbers within. So it is valid to scrutinise the sort of people are joining and showing sympathy. Am I saying that every Corbyn supporter is some far left communist, um, anti-Britain? No, I'm not saying that. But without question, Corbyn has attracted far left support. There is no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That crazy woman who was praising the butcher of Syria, unfortunately, there are a lot of people like her who will rush to defend Jeremy Corbyn. Just a final point on that. I mean, the fact that Assad has a medical background doesn't mean a damn thing. I've no doubt Bashar Assad's an intelligent man. But, I can quote lots of historical figures that were smart, that came from professional backgrounds. It doesn't mean a damn thing. If anything, it would just indicate his killing is all the more um, technical, all the more accurate. But people like that are the very sort of people who do gravitate to Jeremy Corbyn, and that to me is very telling. The Stop the War coalition is an extreme fringe, but it's part of a wider a wider spectrum of extreme support that Corbyn gets. Corbyn, by the way, has never ever distanced himself from the Stop the War coalition. He's praised the Stop the War coalition. At least Caroline Lucas, and I don't like her party, but at least she had the intelligence to leave the Stop the War coalition when they started openly praising Assad. Um, I'm going to round this up here, but I've no doubt there will be many more things to say. If you are a Corbyn supporter, clearly, you're not going to listen to me, and that's fine. I'm not trying to convert anyone here. I'm just expressing my own views. If I do get any vitriolic messages, don't expect me to keep them, because I'm under no obligation to give you people a platform. Feel free to make a rival video. It's fine. We live in a democracy. That's your right. Unlike the communist states that you so look up to, we have freedom of expression. Um, Final point, Jeremy Corbyn has a right to his opinion, as we all do as British citizens. But when he is leading a major political party and potentially could be our next Prime Minister, I don't think he will be, but he has defied expectations already, then very rigid scrutiny of his positions is important. Not personal ad hominem attacks about his appearance, scrutiny of his political positions. Because I believe that Corbyn is an ideologue masquerading as being morally righteous. He's an ideologue. He is a left wing ideologue who will never, ever criticize left wing dictators. So much for being for human rights. I just don't believe it. I think there is an insincerity there, and I do not trust this man with the most powerful position in this country. I do not trust Jeremy Corbyn and his inner circle to have the passion to defend this country. I don't believe that they have any patriotic inclinations whatsoever. And by patriotic, excuse me, I'm not talking about singing Rule Britannia and waving our national flag. I'm talking about basically defending this country. I just don't see Corbyn doing that.